All right. History for women's boxing here as Katie Taylor faces Amanda Serrano for the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO World Female Lightweight titles at MSG, the first female fight in history to take place at Madison Square Garden. Not many are fans of women's boxing. I'm not a huge fan, but you can't deny it's a big coup for the for women's boxing because there aren't really many female fighters, I think, down the years that have really gathered the public's attention. And to be fair, Katie Taylor's one who really is making a bit of a name for herself. She's Irish, got the backing. She's had quite a few fights now in her career for her to be a pretty household name. She's not like a mega name, but big enough. And Amanda Serrano is starting to... This is sort of her first fight on that big stage. She's got the whole... obviously, Jake Paul's promoting her, so she has that. And people don't like Jake Paul, but you got to give him credit. He's part of making this happen, so I think it's a really good fight for women's boxing. Curious to see how this one goes. I think the fight that most people... I mean, the one fight in female boxing that I'm looking forward to is the Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall fight. I think that would be that piques my interest the most, but a really good fight though, this one. And yeah, a really interesting fight as well for stylistically. If you look at both of their records, Katie Taylor, 20 wins, no losses, 6 KOs, even though I think it may have been it was on the AJ Ruiz fight where I feel like she kind of got away with a decision a little bit, but still. And this one thing about Katie Taylor, she's a really good fighter, but problem with fighters like her, it's the same thing with Campbell Hatton and people like that. They're very good and likeable people, but because they're protected by the matchroom and the system, and in this sense it's the zone, it kind of makes it hard for them to other fighters to get a fair shake. But she's good though, and like I said, 20 fights, 20 victories. For Serrano, 42 wins, 1 loss, and 29 KOs. So that is interesting, the fact that she's literally got more KOs than Taylor has fights. So, and that will be a big part. This experience is big. And also, how do you handle the bright lights of MSG, and who handles it better? Katie Taylor, to me, has had more pressure on her career, so I think if I had to pick, I think she would handle the occasion better, but we'll see. I mean, Serrano was actually talking about how she just wants to get it over with, so sounds a bit of an interesting answer, an interesting attitude that she has to this, but good though. I like both of these. Both the same height, and Katie Taylor, surprisingly, has a 3-inch reach advantage. I would have thought would have been the other way around. I don't know, I just Serrano seems like, maybe because of how she fights, she has like quite a long arm, so it just kind of feels like that. But Katie Taylor's definitely got the I don't know, she just sort of, maybe because how she fights, she kind of squats a bit. It feels like she doesn't really have huge reach advantage. Maybe she isn't really using that much because she kind of closes the distance really quickly, but I don't know. And also another, same as the Oscar Valdez Shakur Stevenson, Southpaw versus Orthodox. An interesting matchup here. So first, looking at Amanda Serrano in this case and how she can win the fight. To me, Serrano is almost like a female version of Errol Spence in how she fights. She doesn't have the same pressure as Spence, but she definitely very similar. She obviously southpaw, she unloads the body shots, she has a very long jab, and I think that will be important in this fight. I think, to me, the first thing that she should really work on, in my opinion, is the body shots. You know, Katie Taylor is very spry, very quick on her feet, so I think trying to slow her down, I think the body shots really will big in this one. Serrano herself hasn't got amazing footwork, and I think it's partly due to her martial arts background, because even though MMA fighters are naturally a little bit more lighter on their feet than boxers are, sometimes that doesn't really translate well into the to a boxing ring, because I think these sort of parallels are just very, very different. But you know, one thing about Serrano though, she's very, very aggressive, and I think, like I said, the body shots slow Taylor down, make her feel that pressure, make it uneasy for her, and I think you will see that she'll fatigue, because Taylor's good, but it's a little bit, I think her hype comes off her being Irish and having having just a bit of ability, and she just have ability, and also having the backing of like Conor McGregor and people like that, I think are big. But yeah, I think the body shots, if you can just close the distance, keep it tight, whip the body shots in, I think Taylor will really slow down. I don't think she'll really be able to handle the pressure if you can just keep it up for the whole of the fight. I didn't check. I don't know if it's 12 or 10 rounds this fight, because they kind of tend to switch. I'm assuming it's 12, but I might be wrong about this one. An interesting thing though, because that's important. If it's 12, I really would favour Serrano, especially with the body shots in this one, because she really whips them in really, really hard. I need to probably look at that, but regardless, so yeah, I think the body shots gonna be big in this one. I think if you can just, again, orthodox southpaw, you're able to whip the body shots in a bit more with your on the opposite stance. So to me, that's important. And the other thing that I think is important, is being patient and don't load up on your punches against Katie Taylor. Serrano has a tendency, when she has her opponents up against the rope, just to sort of throw everything at them. And she's skilled, but sometimes she just goes a bit too heavy on it, I think. And to me, just keep it at your distance. Like I said, pop the body shots, keep it close, but don't go too much. Don't smother your own work. And it's something I think she does quite a lot. But I think with how she whips the body shots in, I could see Katie dipping her head, and I think she has a very good uppercut. So to me, just pick your punches wisely, and yeah, just don't load up. I don't think you don't need to, and I think that would be one of the main things, because of how Katie Taylor fights as well. I know Serrano's got more knockouts, but you don't really want to risk getting into a bit of a brawl with her. So I would say keep it that distance and just don't overextend. Don't throw out range. Just don't load up on them. And I think that'd be the main thing. And the third thing that I would say for Serrano in this one is keeping Katie Taylor on her heels. And what I mean by this is just keeping her on the back foot. Keep that forward pressure. Don't stop. Just keep at her. Katie kind of has a tendency to tries to fight. She can fight off the back foot quite well, but I feel like in some of her fights, she does tend to struggle when an opponent really puts it on her. And I remember the fight that she had up against Sharapova, I think it was, where she really, really struggled in that one. And I think a lot of that was how Sharapova was, how spry she was, and how much she kind of pushed Katie back. And I think doing that is what's really going to give Serrano the advantage in this. I think you can just push her back, keep that forward pressure, and I think you could end up breaking her with the pressure and the body shots, because there's only so much of those you can take. And again, Katie's never really fought, I don't think, been there with a big power punch, and Serrano is seen as that, especially in the world of women's boxing. So yeah, I think that would be Serrano's keys to victory. I think it would be hard to do. Katie's very, very quick, but I think trying to push her on the back foot and keeping the body shots is going to be the key for her. And when it comes to Katie Taylor, this is not something that I recommend with fighters, but because of how she fights, I feel like not to the same level. She should take almost a Sean Porter approach in this and almost fight in quick bursts a little bit. Meaning, what I mean by this is that at times when Serrano's not going to throw anything, when she doesn't, I think try and almost smother her and overwhelm her in a way with 3 or 4 punch combinations. Not the greatest combination punch of Katie Taylor, but I think if you can just put it together and just almost outwork her in some of these rounds, because I think the judges probably will favour her, and she's sort of the one of the biggest names in men's boxing at the moment. So I think pushing her on the back foot, I think, would be the not pushing her on the back foot, that would be key, but also when she's on the back foot, because I don't think it will be a one-way fight. I think it will go back and forth, and when that does happen, I think just land your combinations and fight in quick bursts, and I think that would be more beneficial for Katie than just to fight off the back foot, because I think if you can overwhelm her, you take the decision out of the judge's hands in a way. You can almost make it clear, because I think with Serrano, she does tend to kind of, especially if she overthrows, like I was saying, she will maybe punch herself out, and then you can almost overwhelm her a bit more with a bit of a swarm. But I think definitely try and do a quite quick burst. And the one thing I would say, and she does this very well, Katie Taylor, don't fight flat-footed. Stay on your feet, keep sharp, because this is something that where I say the body shots could come handy for Serrano. If Katie just sits there against her, she's going to be a sitting duck. I think keeping on your heels, bouncing around, staying around the ring. Fighters have the whole... First thing you learn is to bend your knees, keep light on your feet, all that kind of stuff as a boxer. But I think in this one specifically, she should really stay on the feet, stay light. Don't just sit there, and I think stay active. Don't be a moving target. Don't just be a stationary, because I think then Serrano, the body shots will come in handy. And to me, I think with Katie, the way she fights, she's very, very much has an active way of fighting. She's just sort of she has a very clean technique. I think she could outbox Serrano, but I think better chance of doing that if you're just not there to be hit. And Serrano, like I said, she's not a quick, hasn't really got crazy hand speed or anything. So I think doing that would be the staying on your feet, staying light. When I say stay on your feet, I don't mean stay on your feet. I mean stay on your toes, and not run from her so much, but kind of just don't sit there. Use the energy of the crowd. They're all going to be probably on her side, so I would imagine that will help her in the fight. So I think use that to your advantage, and I think to me it's the smart thing. And like I said, I don't know who the actual technical boxer is out there too, but I probably would say maybe it was to Katie. And yeah, I think if you can keep that jab sharp, it is going to be the big thing for her, because like I said with Serrano, she has decent head movement, but it's nothing too much where you kind of think that it's going to be a problem. She, again, isn't like a sitting duck in this Serrano, but I do think, especially when I watch some of her fights, she kind of is your come forward fighter, and there's a lot of skill that she has in that. But similar, like I said, this is where it's similar to Errol Spence. If you can, pop that jab, keep it at her, especially with a fighter who likes to come forward and just sort of reset everything. You almost reset her patterns if you keep popping that jab out, especially if you keep it sharp. Again, no lazy jabs, because if that happens, then Serrano will counter over with the hook. And I think Katie's really got to keep that jab sharp and present in this fight. I don't think she can ever, like I said, just throw these sort of lazy, half-hearted shots. She needs to put everything into them, and I think the jab is going to be so key for her in this fight. So yeah, I think the jab, keeping that jab sharp, keeping Serrano off her is going to be very, very key in this one. But yeah, that's just sort of my thoughts on two fights, how I think they can win. Now, when it comes to my predictions, now this one was quite hard for me, because again, women's boxing, it's hard to ever gauge who is completely better than who, but I think these two, they have different styles. Katie, I said it before, she's very active in there, and she's a big name. I think people do like her. She's a bit of a fan's favourite, and if you look at how she fights, she does knock a lot of people out as well. So I think that kind of is it, and does it with her, and with Serrano, has the whole Jake Paul thing behind her, does have the more knockouts. So I think out of the two, you probably would back her to, if there's one stoppage, maybe you'd look at her for that, because she does have a fight with a real relentless type of pressure. And it's a toss-up. I don't know really if there's a clear winner, but to me, I don't know. I think Serrano stops her, to be honest. I just don't know why. I feel like in the later rounds, the body shots are going to add up, and eventually, I think one of those uppercuts gets through. I think she drops Katie, and then she eventually lands that flurry, and then I think the ref just stops. I think, again, I just think the way Serrano fights the pressure, she just don't know. I think Serrano takes it, but a great fight though for women's boxing, and an interesting fight in general. I said in my last one, why did they put this on the Shakur and Oscar Valdez? I do not know. They aren't the smartest, I guess, but a great, interesting matchup and a great night for women's boxing, regardless of what you think about it. It is historic and good to see. I think in MMA, you have people like Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, Ronda Rousey, Rose Namajunas, so many great fighters in there, and I think it'd be good to see that in women's boxing as well. But yeah, great fight. I think Serrano gets it done, and yeah, until next time.